they still ain't found little Ricky. Welcome to La Vida Rosa. I'm your host Pinky, and today we're going to talk about On My Block, and we're going to discuss the ending, and basically I'm going to talk about everything that led up to here and kind of try to figure out what happened in those 2 years, because I mean, whoa. So if you'd like to see more, then just stay tuned. Don't forget to check out my website, La Vida Rosa Style, where you can find cute accessories like the ones I'm wearing in my hair and my ears. The link is down below. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And without further ado, let's get into this video. This show is set in South Central Los Angeles. It's a coming of age story about 4 14 and 15-year-old kids, people of color, growing up in the hood. And these 4 friends come from different walks of life, even though they all experience the effects of gang life, violence, and just overall trauma that comes with living in that sort of neighborhood. Some things that stood out to me about them is that they can guess the type of gun just by the pow, by the sound of the gun. And I'm just like, wow, I would never be able to tell you what type of gun, you know. I'm sure people at the gun range could tell you, but just the fact that they've heard guns so often their whole life, they know the type of gun, says a lot. And another thing that stood out to me is that they have memorials to certain people who have been shot or have passed away, and they are up and down the street, and it's very much so common. But the thing that was made very clear to me from watching these seasons over, I originally thought this story was set around Monse, but honestly the story is really set around Caesar and Spooky, because literally everything that happens can in some way be traced back to Caesar or Spooky because of the gang affiliation and everyone, you know, in some way or another trying to protect or save Caesar. The thing that really made me want to make this video is the ending of season 3. Obviously, I think we all were like, whoa, you know, thrown off by the ending, but we can't really be shocked. Like, we really can't be shocked, and I'm gonna show y'all why. I'm gonna go down the line and I'm gonna talk about what led us to that ending and give my opinion on why I think they are where they are today. So first I'm going to start with Oscar, aka Spooky. Isn't it crazy how all these thugs, they have these nicknames because their real names be real old school or not scary at all. Like Oscar, I'll never forget when I first found out T.I.'s real name was Clifford. I was like, yeah, you needed that name, because who's gonna be scared of Clifford? Who's gonna be scared of Oscar? First of all, I have to say the actor that plays Spooky has to be an awesome actor, because when I looked at his Instagram page, he looks nothing like Spooky. Like, I mean, the complete opposite. Very approachable. He seems very nice. So for him to transform the way he does, I really appreciate the transformation. So Spooky is the leader of the Santos, at least on his block. There is an overall leader, like the boss. Her name is Cuchillos, and that he has to answer to, but he's pretty much the leader of his block. And originally when we first meet him, he's just getting out of jail, and all of the friends, including Caesar, excluding Monse, are scared of him. Like, he really strikes fear into them. And it's just crazy to see them go from, you know, extreme like fear to, by the end, they're like snapping on him about this roller world money. It's like really hilarious to see where they are from the beginning to where they are now. Spooky really had it hard growing up. He had an absentee father, which I'm not sure, it wasn't clear to me whether his father wasn't there because he was just one of the leaders in the gang, because he went to jail, or he was an absentee. Maybe it's a combination of the three. It was never really made clear why he was never there, but he wasn't. And they made mention of their mother a little bit, how she was negligent, but they never really alluded to what happened to their mother, not as far as I saw. Maybe y'all could tell me down below. So Spooky had to take over and raise Caesar. And one thing that struck me about his relationship with his father, or lack thereof, is when he confronted his dad about him not being there. He was like, I had to be a father and I never actually got to be a son. So that kind of showed you how quickly Spooky had to grow up in that environment, because if he didn't, then you know, they would have been eaten up by the wolves. He had no choice. That's why he holds so much resentment for his father, Ray. You could tell that all he wanted from Ray was for him to be there. You know what I'm saying? Like, he ended up breaking down, and you know, he had this shield of anger towards Ray, but he ended up breaking down and crying. And you know, it was a really tender moment to see them hug. Then he had to put that, you know, shield right back up of toxic masculinity, because that's what he said powered him through all these years. He used that anger to motivate him to keep going, which is sad, you know. We also learned that Spooky actually was a gifted student, and he was actually into the culinary arts, and he was going to be a chef, but he didn't pursue his dream because he wanted to stick around and protect Caesar. Even though Spooky raised Caesar and was, you know, the only parent he's ever known, he's also influenced him to do some terrible things, jump him into the gang, forcing him to kill Latrell, and actually shunning and excommunicating Caesar when he didn't actually Latrell. In his own way, he was weirdly trying to protect him and raise him, because in this gang lifestyle, you have to someone in order to be proven as worthy in the gang. So in a way, I understood why he did that, but in another way, he also put his life in danger. He was a victim of circumstance and a slave to this gang that he later found out is his loyalty to the gang was a complete lie, and that Cuchillos actually had his father take the fall for something and turn on him for absolutely no reason. So before Cuchillos could do the same thing to him, he actually flipped the script, turned on Cuchillos, and did what he had to do to save Caesar, Monse, Jamal, and Ruby from being hurt by her. And that is one of Spooky's redeeming qualities. He might cause some mess, but he'll really try to fix it in the end. Like when Ruby got shot and Olivia was, he went out of his way to try to cheer him up and really get him out of the funk of being shot. I mean, that was some serious trauma, but he did the best he could to try to pull him out of it. He even set up a truce to try to protect Ruby and his family. Towards the end of this story, you see that Spooky risked his life to take down Cuchillos, because you see Abuelita sewing up his neck. Apparently, it looked like he got knifed down trying to take her down. And also, he made a truce with 19th Street Gang. Spooky was under the delusion that the gang was a family because he had never had one. So when he realized that the gang had actually backstabbed him and his actual father, I think that removed the delusion from him, and he realized he did not want to be a part of that anymore, and he wanted his own actual family. That's why it doesn't shock me that at the end he had a whole family. He walked up and kissed and touched a pregnant woman's stomach, so I'm assuming that's his wife or girlfriend. He has a full head of hair. He's wearing a button-up that's not gray or black. He's cooking, and he's cooking on the grill in a big backyard full of people that we're assuming is like family and friends. I'm thinking that he took the Roller World money that he got back from Cuchillos, and he used that to start a new life. He did exactly what he told Caesar that he wanted to do, and I'm assuming that him and Caesar butted heads over that. He could have used the money to start a business, buy a house, you know, just start all the way over. And I just can't picture him not wanting to bring Caesar with him. And so it just makes me think that they had a butting of heads when it came to him leaving the gang. And in the first season, they even said in order to leave the gang, you have to like die basically to leave the gang. So it's making me wonder, how did he get out of that? Unless Caesar is the head of the gang. He would have to be in order to let him get by with that. But yeah, Spooky's living his best life, and he ain't about that gang life no more. Hopefully. I mean, because this could all just be a front. He could be pulling the strings from behind the scenes. But I doubt it, because he grew his hair out, and I thought the mark of like being in that gang was being, you know, bald-headed. I don't know. Y'all let me know y'all predictions down below. So let's move on to Caesar, aka Lil Spooky. When we first met Caesar, he was code switching. Like, he knew how to act with the gang members, the Santos, because his brother was over the Santos, so he knew how to conduct himself when around them. But with his friends, he seemed to be much softer and, you know, loyal, and just, he looked like he wanted to be your average 14-15-year-old. But when Spooky came home, he had to put that front back up, and so he said that him and Monse hooked up, and that caused a major blowout between him, Jamal, and Ruby, because Jamal and Ruby assumed he was lying in order to look cool in front of the gang, when in actuality it was true. But he was also saying that in order to protect Monse from Spooky, which was kind of weird. I'm like, Spooky, you was gonna go after Monse and she a little child? It made me side-eye Spooky. And also, as a result of Spooky coming home, he had to be jumped in the gang. Monse really pushed Caesar to believe he could do more than just be in a gang and, you know, get off of this block. She pushed him more than anybody. I mean, his friends did too, but it was truly Monse who was facilitating this idea that, you know, he need to get out of this gang before it, you know, swallows him up. And, you know, he was going along with that, and he was going along with that idea as long as Spooky was in jail. But when Spooky came home, Caesar had no choice but to get jumped into the gang, because that's the family business. He really, to survive, he had to be jumped in. The rival gang to the Santos is the Prophets, and one of the members of the Prophets was a guy named Latrell, who actually went to school with Caesar. But once he threatened Caesar, Caesar was then forced to buy Spooky to Latrell. And he did not kill Latrell, because he told Spooky he's not a killer. He doesn't feel like he could do it. So he ended up pretending to kill Latrell, and Latrell was supposed to go elsewhere and hide and never come back again. I don't know why he thought that would work. And Latrell came back to actually Caesar, and instead ended up shooting Olivia and Ruby. So after that whole traumatic event happened, he was then shunned from the gang. He was homeless, and he had Monse, but that wasn't gonna work out. Y'all boyfriend and girlfriend and daddy is not gonna be okay with you staying at that house. Even though Monse pretty much had free rule and reign to do whatever she wanted to do, she couldn't get away with that one. So he ended up staying with Jamal. Thankfully, Jamal had a good support system for Caesar as well. As you can imagine, Caesar was really troubled after that. I mean, he was troubled to begin with, but he was really troubled after that, because he felt responsible for what happened to Ruby and Olivia. For them to get shot, for him to be homeless, for him to be shunned away from the only family that he has, he was shook, you know, to the core. Monse, in a way, was pretty much his only stability, you know what I'm saying? She's the one that he could call on, you know, for the most part. Sometimes they would fall out, but he knows that she had his back pretty much no matter what. And so when Monse was discovering her mom, he was very selfish with not supporting her with that, and not, you know, giving her the same support that she always gave him. But I kind of understand why he did that, because he was losing the only stability that he ever knew. And so after losing that stability, and I'm not saying it's fair, because she's young just like he is. She has to discover herself just like he does. But I'm imagining that's where his mindset was. And after they fell out, which I thought was a breakup, apparently they were just on a break. What's the difference? She was ghosting him during this time. So he fell into the arms of another girl, and that caused another blow up between them. I just feel like Monse and Caesar's relationship is a series of miscommunications. Like most of their fights come from them not communicating well, both of them, and not saying exactly what's on their mind. They would often lie and deceive each other in order to try to protect each other, but it just built a bed of distrust, really. Spooky ended up saving him from the prophets and Cuchillo. He basically, even though he would get him in the trouble, he would always save Caesar at the end of the day. And honestly, most of the people in Caesar's life saved him. Like many times. Like Jamal had his back when he needed somewhere to stay. Jamal's dad gave him somewhere to work. Monse, you know, gave him motivation and comfort. And Monse had his back whenever his dad came back in his life, even though he didn't have the same for her. I believe Caesar when he said he really didn't want to be in the Santos up until he got ready to take out Cuchillos. And he was coming up with a plan to do so and, you know, serious about it. I feel like that's when his whole mindset changed about the gang. When he found out his brother was truly in danger, he went to the Santos and really snapped on them, like did not hold back. He acted like he was a little spooky in that moment. You saw it when that whole blow up between him, Jamal, and Ruby happened. You saw him take the role of like a leader of a gang. I'm the leader and you taking orders from me right now. And that's when Ruby had to check him and be like, look, a real friend is gonna tell you the truth and tell you when you're wrong. And it's like he was living by the gang rules that the leader gets the final say. And even after they had this fight, when they were in the woods and he felt like they were in danger, he took the leader role and was willing to, you know, take whatever came their way as far as violence. And when he saw Cuchillos was in that grave, he was pleased, not relieved that he didn't have to do it. And then when Spooky decided that he wanted to give up gang life, he completely was irritated with him and mad at him and frustrated and was saying, well, you're going to lose all your power. They're not going to respect you. And it's like you could see him taking on that gang mentality. Like he didn't want to lose the position of being the leader of the block. And if Oscar wasn't willing to do it, he was going to take his spot. And that's exactly what happened at the end. He became a little spooky. He was standing over a group of gang members jumping somebody in, what looks like jumping somebody in. And he had the Santos tattoo on his back, as well as a tattoo of a heart with a skull in it. And I just feel like him and Monse are not on speaking terms. I feel like they fell all the way out. I feel like they are on bad terms. Like if they saw each other, they probably wouldn't speak. For him to have a broken heart on his chest, who else would have left him with a broken heart? Who else? It could be from a fallout with Spooky, but I doubt it. I think a broken heart with a skull in it, that's about Monse. So speaking of Monse, let's move on to her. Since the beginning, Monse felt like she was fighting for her friendship with the guys, but I feel like she never, even though she did keep people together and she sort of was like the glue to keep everyone together, I feel like it was more so by force than by actual friendship. I'm not saying that she didn't care about Jamal or Ruby or Jasmine. I'm just saying most of her concern went to Caesar at all times first. But it is true, she kept them together because on the first episode they had fell out over what Caesar had said about Monse, and then there were times throughout the season where she would just be the catalyst to bring everyone back together. I think Monse and Caesar bonded over abandonment issues. I mean, both of Caesar's parents were gone, and Monse's mother left her at an early age at 3, I believe. I think she responded to being abandoned by pushing people away, especially Caesar. At first she tried to push him away. Consistently she tries to push him away. She can be very emotionally unavailable and over analytical, and I think she does those things to protect herself from being hurt. Monte really had to deal with a lot. I mean, her best friend was shot, her other friend was taken all the way out of here. She had to deal with older men constantly like trying to flirt with her, and she was a young girl, 14. Her mother left her at a very young age of 3. That would cause anybody to build up a wall to the world. Monse lives with her single father, who is gone majority of the time because he works a truck driving job, so he's gone a lot of the time. Monse ended up coming in contact with her mother, who abandoned her all those years ago, abandoned her and her father. She made it seem more like she was concerned about Monse's living conditions, which are concerning, but she was only 10 miles away this entire time. Apparently Free Ridge is the more violent neighborhood, and I forgot the name of the other neighborhood was, you know, the more affluent, and it was only 10 miles between the two, and she never actually came back for Monse. Monse had to go find her. And so once they reconnected, she wanted her to live with her. And you know, one reoccurring thing with Monse is she doesn't believe she deserves better. Anytime she has an opportunity to, you know, go to a better school, or, you know, go to camp, or go this place and that place, she always feels like she's not going to fit in. But every single time she's been placed in a situation where she doesn't think she's going to be able to make friends with girls, or this person or that person, she excels. Like when she lived with her mom, she made friends with the affluent girls there. There was many times where she felt that she couldn't fit in, when she proved herself wrong plenty of times. And I feel like that spoke a lot to her opinion of herself. So things came to a head with her mother when she found out that her mom had told people that the reason why she left her father and Monse when she was a baby is because her father was abusive. And you know, if you watch the show, you already know that's ridiculous. Her father was not abusive. She just needed a good reason for leaving her family.
It was low-key a stupid excuse for leaving anyway, because if he was so abusive, why would you leave your child with him?
Her mother changed her name to Julia, but her original name is Selena, and that lets me know that her mother is a white passing Latina, or a white Latina, and she didn't want to live her life in Free Ridge anymore, you know, as a minority. So she changed her identity and moved to New York, and found and married a white man, and had seemingly white children. And Monse pieced all of that together in her mind and asked her, like, would you have ever left me if I looked like your other two kids? And when her mother broke down and could not answer that question, that was it for their relationship. So Monse ended up leaving, and she tried to contact her. Her mother didn't answer. Then her mother tried to contact Monse back. It didn't. Their communication just wasn't there at all. And by the end of it, Monse's mother took herself out. I don't want to get demonetized. And Monse found herself extremely emotionless about it. She claimed she felt that way because at least she knows she won't be disappointed by her anymore. And you know, that just shows me even more that Monse definitely has built up a high wall around her emotions, because she has been hurt so much in the past that she's trying to protect herself. So by the end of season 3, Monse wanted to go to this new school, but she didn't want to leave because she didn't want her friends to forget about her. She didn't want the friend group to fall apart, because it's a pattern that when Monse leaves, the friends fall apart. So she ended up going anyway, and 2 years later, Monse is wearing makeup. And if you know anything about Monse will wear a hoodie to a dance, okay? So wearing makeup and like trendy clothing is completely out of her wheelhouse. So she's obviously growing up, you know what I'm saying, and you know, blossoming as a young lady. So she's hanging out with a group of girls, and they seem to be good friends. She has a picture with her and them on her desk, like right next to her bed, where you see that she has a picture of her and her block friends, Caesar, Jamal, Ruby, and Jasmine, all around the edge of, all around the frame, and they are pushed to the back. Clearly they're behind all the clutter, because she also has a picture of her father and a picture of her siblings on the desk, and they are in the forefront. So I do think Monse might have fallen out all the way with Caesar, but I think for the rest of the friend group, I think they just grew apart. I mean, you know, Monse moved all the way to a different state across the country, and she went to this new school, made new friends, possibly, you know, she has different goals. She's not the same person she was 2 years before, and that's just what happens with your teenage years. She grew away from her friends, and that's a natural progression sometimes for people, especially around that age. And I really feel like her and Caesar have fallen out because she had a great disdain for Spooky and for what he had done being the leader of that gang. And so now that Caesar is now the leader of that gang, took his place, I can only imagine like how she feels towards Caesar. And I'm sure she probably has no contact with him whatsoever. So let's move on to Ruby. First of all, let me start by saying I feel like the person who plays Ruby, I'm sorry I don't have any of the actors' names. I'll put the actors' names on the screen. I feel like the person who plays Ruby is the best actor on this show. Like, he gives you all the feels when he cries, when he wakes up in a cold sweat, when he, like, I feel what he's portraying. But let's get to Ruby. He's very intelligent. When we first meet him, he's kind of like on the timid, weak side of things, nerdy side of things. He's super close with Jamal. Him and Jamal are BFFs. You know, when we first meet them, they're the closest out of the entire friend group. When we first meet Ruby, even though they have all of these gangs around and, you know, all of this turmoil happening around him, his biggest goal in life was to have his own room. And then when Olivia moved in, his biggest goal was to like impress her and for her to be his girlfriend. You know what I'm saying? Ruby had very innocent goals in the beginning of this, and I feel like out of everyone, Ruby fought the hardest for everyone to keep their innocence. Like when the dance came around, he really pushed for everyone to go to the dance, and you know, him and Jasmine partnering up and, you know, trying to win the dance contest together, as well as throwing the quince for Olivia. He went all out and did the most for his brother's baby shower. That's just, I feel like that's the way that Ruby not only keeps people normal, he tries to keep it as normal as possible within the chaos, but I feel like it's also a way he kind of shows his love to his family and friends by, you know, doing things like that, going out of his way to make it as great of an event as possible.
I also feel like that's one of his coping mechanisms, just to throw himself into a project.
I feel like his innocence took a turn once he got shot. I mean, obviously, that would make anybody lose their innocence. He ended up having very severe PTSD. He would wake up in cold sweats, have hallucinations, flashbacks, panic attacks. And during that time, I feel like the main one, his friends were there, but the main one there to comfort him was Jasmine. Jasmine was there to help him pick his head up. Whenever he had a panic attack at the dance, it was Jasmine that was able to calm him down. He didn't blame Caesar, but he did go off on Spooky and blame Spooky. Like, he snapped on him, and this was while he was going through the grief. You know, they were showing the different stages, you know, denial, anger, acceptance. You know, they did such a good job writing this. Oh my goodness, because they really did show his each individual stage of going through that grief. So not only was he dealing with PTSD from getting shot, but also his family was having major financial issues. His parents were fighting, and his dad was sleeping in his bedroom, so he could see the major issues that his parents were going through, and it was in turn he was in turn taking on those issues, as well as having cuchillos hanging over his head and being constantly threatened by death from her. He was experiencing so much turmoil at once. I feel like it really came to a head at Monse's mother's funeral, when he was just basically like, we're all gonna die anyway, and you know, I'm not surprised she took herself out, I'm surprised we didn't take ourselves out. And you know, that was like, I feel like that was totally out of character for him. And we really saw the true feelings that Ruby had for her when he had to basically shut her down, break her up, tell her the kiss meant nothing. And you know, not only did she break down, but he broke down. And you know, we saw them eventually find their way back to each other. And you know, when we see the flash forward in 2 years, they're still together. And let me talk about Jasmine before I really get into, you know, their little scene.
When we first meet Jasmine, she is the big girl, loud, overly flirtatious trope that we've seen over and over in so many sitcoms and shows like that.
And I'm not trying to call her fat, by the way. It's just that's the whole, we've all seen a character like that. You know, the girl that doesn't get the guy but obsesses over him. She was more of a joke. She was one-dimensional, one-trick pony. We didn't really get to see the real Jasmine. But the more you got to know Jasmine, you saw that she was confident. You know, she didn't mind embracing her body, even though it's not necessarily the standard of beauty. She embraced her body. She had a real body. She wore flashy outfits. She was a competitor. She, you know, was a good detective, a good spy. You know, there was a lot of things to Jasmine that you didn't see when we first met her. We also got to see that her dad is a disabled veteran that was in the Afghanistan war. And, you know, he ended up getting hurt and he never was the same, you know, and she has to care for him. This says a lot about her thoughtfulness and, you know, just her hospitality for people. It shows with her father. You have to have a lot of patience to be a caretaker. And so it makes perfect sense why Jasmine is such a she's more of a motherly figure to the characters. Even though she has this like sort of difficult life to live, she chooses to be happy. She's like a very self-imposed member of this group, and even though she kind of pushes herself into like Ruby's family and just into the group in general, she becomes accepted over time and loved as like, you know, a sisterly figure. Her and Monse became close. Even though she is confident in many ways, when it came to Ruby, she, you know, was a little insecure and she was used to being rejected. She's comfortable being rejected. She's comfortable with doing too much because she already knows what the outcome is going to be. But if she actually puts herself out there and, you know, puts her real feelings out there for Ruby to, you know, accept or reject, that is, you know, much more hurtful than her, you know, having her guard up of being this loud, crazy girl. Since the beginning, Jasmine had a huge crush on Ruby. So you would think him kissing her, she would just accept like any type of kiss, any type of affection from him. But she was just like, look, I don't want that if you're just doing this out of grief. She wanted him to actually want her back. And, you know, she was just saying she was a whole life's love. And she, you know, she wasn't going to accept nothing less than someone actually wanting to be with her. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, it worked out because 2 years later, they're still hand in hand. I mean, 2 years, that's a long time for teenagers. So 2 years later, they're walking hand in hand. And you can see Jasmine, she changed up her look a lot because she's used to being, you know, wearing shorts and short skirts, flashy, gaudy, you know what I'm saying, just anything to give her a little bit of attention. She's wearing like a longer skirt, you know, more of a classic look. And Ruby, he's more of a, you know, tightly buttoned up, you know, button all the way up to the top, you know, polo, button up shirt, khakis or whatever, hair combed over look. But now he's wearing like a punk rock t-shirt type of thing, and you know, his style is completely different, and you know, he just looks like a different person. You know, he just doesn't look like that same Ruby that we've been knowing for the past 3 years. When you see them walking by, it's like they're almost two totally different people that you wouldn't even recognize. And so finally, let's get to Jamal before I complete their scene. First of all, Jamal is my fave, so I'm biased. I'm gonna let y'all know that up front. I love Jamal. He makes me laugh. He gives this show what it needs. It's comedic. We need those comedic breaks. I've seen a lot of people online say he carries the show on his back, and he definitely does. I feel like, I don't know if I would have made it through all of these seasons if Jamal was not on it. He is really the heartbeat of this show, if I'm being real, followed by Jasmine and our boy Lita. And also during a time like this, you know, I would love to see what Jamal has to say about like this pandemic and what his, you know, survival guide would be, because he has one for pretty much every other like natural disaster. I love the fact that Jamal is the only, pretty much, well, he's the only fully black person on this show, and he's not the stereotype at all. His family is not the stereotype at all. He's an only child. They're like, even though they live in the hood, they have like a really nice house. It's like they're middle class. I'll never forget when he went off on his dad after he quit from the restaurant, and then right before he left, he was like, "Love you." I thought that was hilarious. Like, their family is not your stereotypical black family that's portrayed on TV, and I like that. I like the fact that, you know, Jamal, his father was this football player and like the football star, and you know, usually black men in the family are portrayed as, I did this, so you gonna have to do that. If you don't do it, then I'm gonna be mad. And it's like Jamal felt like he was gonna be that way. Like, he pretended like he was on the football team. He kept faking injury after injury. I mean, Jamal was having a panic attack over being on this football team. He was definitely afraid of being on the team. But you know, he wanted to impress his father. He wanted to make his family proud, so he pretended. And so when it came down to him actually having to play, Jamal really wasn't even that bad. Like, he scored a touchdown, the winning touchdown. So we saw that he had some skill right then. I mean, his father was a football player, so I'm sure something passed down to him. And so what I love about their relationship was that when he told them that he didn't want to be a football player, they was like, okay, like, nobody was making you. You know what I'm saying? So I just love how understanding his dad is, and what a great role model, how motivational he is. He's a good male role model for all the, you know, for Caesar, for Jamal, all of them. I just love the role that his dad played on this show. His father allowed Caesar to stay at their house and also gave him a job to stay out of trouble. We love strong black role models. We love that.
Jamal grew up in more of a sheltered household. He didn't have to go through what the others in his group went through. So he was able to maintain his innocence the longest.
So he was able to pursue things like roller world money. No one really took him seriously. No one took him seriously with the roller world money, but he, you know, was determined. That was the funnier part of the show, was him, you know, going through this scavenger hunt of trying to find this money. The crew, for the most part, ignored him. I mean, Ruby humored him sometimes, but they really ignored him, except for Ruby's grandmother, Abuelita. And she became one of my favorite characters too, because she really did humor Jamal. She really did believe in him, because the crew only really helped him with the roller world money when they needed to save Caesar. That's pretty much the only time they really like gave him the real time of day when it came to that, and when it needed to be clean.
But to be fair, they were dealing with life or death situations, and Jamal just seemed to be, you know, playing little kiddie games in comparison.
But Jamal did most of the work when it came to the roller world money. And it's a shame that he didn't get any of it at the end of the day. You know what I'm saying? Like, he worked hard for that money, and Caesar ended up with it. Caesar could have gave him some of that money. He dug it up. He sacrificed the most for it. It's crazy to me that he was like an afterthought for them a lot of times when it came to his crazy hijinks, but in his mind, it's like he kind of felt like he was the leader of the group. Whenever someone like threatened his hypothetical position, like Jasmine when she came in with her detective skills when they were trying to find little Ricky, he became defensive and very dismissive of her. When it came down to them taking out Cuchillo, Jamal and Ruby could not take it. They were not about that life. They both, you know, threw up from being so, you know, nervous and scared, and they really did not want to do it. They were basically just like Caesar when Spooky wanted Caesar to take out Latrell. And at one point, Jamal did feel responsible for what happened with Cuchillo because he found the roller world money. But at the end of the day, Jamal felt like Caesar was destined to be in this gang. He said that from the beginning. They did their best to try to keep him from being in the game, but I think Jamal always knew in the back of his mind Caesar was going to be in this game regardless. When we fast forward 2 years later, Jamal is completely different. He's not like the nerdy goofy Jamal we're used to. I mean, he's wearing an earring and a chain. He's on the football team when in the beginning this boy was hyperventilating over even touching a football. Not only is he on the team, but he's like, so like the center of attention, surrounding everybody, making everybody laugh, telling, like he telling the story or whatever. But that doesn't surprise me that Jamal is like popular or on the football team, because like I said, his father was a football player, and Jamal is very personable and funny. So all he had to do was learn how to, you know, translate that into getting along with more people, and there you go. I think before he just wasn't concerned about, you know, making other friends. He already had his friends. He was more concerned about, you know, little kiddish things. And even this whole girlfriend storyline, which I don't know, y'all, that storyline kind of blew me a little bit. I wasn't really too into it, other than, you know, Jamal he finally realized that girls would like him. He didn't, like, when that girl first showed up, he was like, he didn't understand why she would be interested in him at all. And Jasmine was like, well, maybe she like you. And he was like, no. Anyway, he's in the center of this football team. He's entertaining them or whatever. And that's when Jasmine and Ruby walk by, and they both have a smile on their face, but as soon as they see each other, it kind of drops immediately as soon as they make eye contact. And it's like, whoa. I feel like they had a major fallout too. I don't think this was a gradual growing apart. I think something major might have happened. Maybe they had a major blow up. It could be because, you know, sometimes when you get in a relationship, you forget about your friends, and that ain't right. But Ruby could have gotten a relationship with Jasmine and forgot all about Jamal. Jamal could have got a girlfriend, forgot all about him. I mean, anything could have happened, but I feel like it was like a major blow up, because the fact that their face dropped, and the fact that Jasmine didn't even give him a glance whatsoever. It was just like, I don't feel like Jasmine was just like, ugh, but I just think she completely was indifferent towards Jamal, period. And that just makes me feel like they're not cool at all. And Jasmine is like on the side of, well, you don't need him anyway. You know what I'm saying? Because she didn't even give him a glance. So I don't know what happened, but I feel like it was a major fallout that happened between them. I'm sad about it, because I love Ruby and Jamal as friends, but that happens. I mean, like I said before, especially at that age, that teenage age, the gradual growing apart happens. People that you were friends with freshman year, most likely y'all not even gonna be, it's not that y'all ain't cool, but y'all grew apart so much that y'all don't even know each other the senior year. And that's just, it is what it is. It happened with me too when I was in high school. At the end of the day, I think these friends, because they went through so much together, I feel like they are symbols of trauma, the struggle, and violence for each other. When they got into that big blow up in the woods, I feel like that's when they let their true emotions about each other out. Jamal feels like being friends with Caesar is a liability. Ruby says he took a bullet for Caesar, and he's been collateral damage pretty much ever since. And then when Monse tries to speak up, everybody tells Monse, we don't need your input because you're not even going to be here. So I feel like all of that was kind of like an explanation and foreshadowing for the ending. And Caesar was just like, well, if you don't want to be here, then leave. So I mean, that's exactly what happened. And I feel like that's why the ending is the way it is. I really hope there's a season 4, because I really want to know what happened. I need to know what happened with Spooky and Caesar's parents. I need to know exactly what happened, the entire backstory. I want to see how they interact with each other now, how the the former friends interact with each other now, because the fact that now one of them are friends no more, I need to see what happened. How did y'all fall apart? So y'all let me know what y'all think down below. Do you agree with me? Do you not agree with me? I hope you enjoyed this video. I really hope you enjoyed it, y'all. I spent so much time on this and effort. I know it's gonna take me forever to edit, so I really do. When I say I hope you enjoyed it, I really mean it. Let me know what y'all want me to rant about next down below as well. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in my next one. Peace.